What can you tell us about contingencies?
So contingencies are normally a cost center that sits outside of your contract, and it's designed to be as a pot of money that sits outside of the contract that you can use to draw down on to address costs that arise throughout the build. So it might be the extra over from a provisional sum, it might be the balance of a prime cost item, there might be a variation that comes up that sits outside of the builder's scope of works, that you use that contingency to manage that. It's a sum of money. A rule of thumb generally is that a lot of people allow 10% of the contract sum, and it sits outside of the contract. It's managed by the client and the financier, and you draw down on that to manage any sums that weren't allowed for originally.
How do you manage contingencies in building construction advisory?
So how we utilize contingency is we want to understand what's that sum for? Have we broken out and isolated all the other costs that sit outside of the build contract? So do we have an amount of money for authority fees and contributions? Have we got all of our consultants covered? Have we got all of our permit fees and levies covered? We go through the development costs and make sure everything else is listed, because we want that contingency to be used for what its intended use is for, not all these other costs that we should have allowed for and didn't foresee. Then what we do is during the tender process and then within the builder appointment and contract negotiations, we go through the clarifications that the builders submitted, understanding their inclusions, exclusions, and clarifications. Sometimes there'll be an exclusion which needs to be part of the building works, and we'll put a cost to it. If we can, we will get the builder to re-include it, and that becomes part of your construction costs. But in some instances, that's not the case because there's not enough information. We put a sum of money to that. If you've got a project that's $1 million and you've got an allowance of 10% and you've got 100,000 of contingency, then we'll go through and we'll isolate what other costs we believe there could be. So your contingency may end up being $126,000 or $137,000 because we've now covered all the possibilities of what's come up, and then that 100,000 can get put towards your unforeseens that pop up throughout the construction works. Or as we start to get 60, 70, 80% through the project, then you can start allocating that to the nice to haves, like your lighting upgrades, or instead of having a laminate bench top, you get a stone bench top. Some of the nice to haves that maybe you had to pull back on originally to make the project more feasible and to stack up.